The fuck the real dialogue is. What the fuck is this thing? All of the windshield, for fuck's sake. Oh, fuck. What the fuck did I say? That didn't sound for shit, did it? And here, under the hood, we've stored something that'll really come in handy if it doesn't fall out and break my leg. Ah! What we're doing is we're building a fucking industrial film, trying to give these guys everything they can get. I mean, that's it. Fuck it. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. We suppose we open... Gotta do it again, right now. Oh, fuck. 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 Oh, fuck. Shit. Tony, do me a favor, will you please? Will you do me a kindness?
Leave.
Yeah.
I think I want to be walking in and out if you're going to fuck up and I got to come back.
I don't make any difference to me at this juncture. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Tony. Don't slam the fucking door. No more. Listen, I've got to give a clue here now. I don't want any more bullshit anytime during the day from anyone. That includes me. It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody. Want anybody yelling? We get anybody yelling around here anymore today, and then the shit is going to hit the fan. And they fit the diverse needs of a very big fern, and they fit the needs of a very diverse buyer segment. Why can't I remember? I wrote this stuff. Why can't I remember it? Why don't I say it fucking right? What does the goddamn line say, Tony? What is the goddamn line? I don't give a shit what the line is. I fucked up the word rear. I can't even read the fucking VO straight. What the fuck was that? We got flies all over the fucking place. Son of a bitch. Get out of here, you fucking flies. There's a fly over the headlight, Tony. We got flies coming for us. Fuck. Fuck out of here, you flies. We got 3 flies, 5 flies. And if you will, make sure, if you will, we don't have that fly on the left side, on the passenger side, because we don't have that in frame, but make sure we don't have any flies here. And we don't have any flies. Here we go. Get out of here, you goddamn jackass.
Fuck it. There's no words on it. Fuck it. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Cause I've never seen that.
Fucking thing sucks.
There's no words there.
Fuck it.
There's no words on it.
Fuck it. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Cause I've never seen that.
Fucking thing sucks.
There's no words there. I don't know. Fuck. 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 I don't know what. Go. I can't do it.
Fuck it.
Go. I can't do it.
Fuck it.
Go. I can't do it.
Fuck it.
Go. I can't do it. Thanks again for watching.
Fuck it.
There's no words on it.
Fuck it. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Cause I've never seen that.
Fucking thing sucks.
There's no words there.
Fuck it.
There's no words on it.
Fuck it. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Cause I've never seen that.
Fucking thing sucks.
There's no words there.
Okay, ready?
Take it away. Go. Yeah. Go. Yeah. Go. Yeah.
Fuck it.
We'll do it live. Go. Yeah. Go. Yeah. Go. Yeah.
Fuck it.
We'll do it live.
Fuck it.
Go.
Fuck it.
Go.
Fuck it.
Go.
Fuck it.
What's that mean? To play us out? To end the show? Yeah.
What is up, everybody? Dark Horse Live episode 74. Tonight we got a banger. We got a good one. Todd McCormick's going to be here. I even made a graphic for everybody. Let me find it. Bam. Spent 10 minutes on that. You see that? What do you think about that?
It's just as good as my 2-minute, 30-second joint.
Yeah, this joint is rush job here. We got a rush job on this joint. Anyway, let's go to free shit.
It's free!
All right. Tonight on Free Shit, I've got Star Spangled Banner or Daz Night Owl. If you weren't paying attention, live under a rock, this drop went crazy. Star Spangled Banner. There's 2 packs here. Go ahead and send an email to darkhorsegeneticslive@gmail.com. In the subject line, you're going to have to write, how's about Daz melted the Seed Bazaar. Daz melted the Seed Bazaar. A lot of words this week.
Can I win this since it's not a dark horse pack?
No, you can't win, but you can move that laptop right away from that microphone where I hear you pecking away. Perfect, thank you. We'll do a second pack. We'll do a second pack with this instead of 2 winners on the same email. We'll do a second pack with a separate email.
Can I win the second one?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
All right, the second pack, same thing. Star Spangled Banner. He left another one here, but I don't have a UV thing, so I don't know what it is. This one's blank, and I can't give it to you because I don't know what it is. I don't have my UV pen. But Star Spangled Banner, pack 2. To win that one, Caesar, what's the code word?
I can't win.
Caesar can't win. I can't win. I'm sure a lot of you guys feel like that. I've tried to win these shits over the time, but I can't win. Right? I can't win, and we'll pick. I didn't pick numbers, so the first one I'll pick number 50. Caesar, for the second one, what number?
74.
So the 50th person to write an email to me that says, what did I say? Daz melted the Sea Bazaar?
Something like
Or Night Owl, whatever the fuck I said. Yeah. And then 75th person to send me an email.
74th.
74th person to send me an email for what the fuck did I say for yours?
I can't win.
I can't win. Jeez, my short-term memory is shit. That's what it should say. All right, good luck, everybody. Good luck on winning shit. Real fast, let's go over to our fireside chats.
Oh God, here it comes. Oh, hot, 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 hot.
So, the clone drop happening this Friday. I'm going to turn it over to Caesar. Caesar, tell us what the fuck's going on.
So this Saturday, October 16th, we will be having a clone drop at, what's the place? The Healing Tree. It's going to be 3995 East 50th Avenue, Denver, Colorado. It's going to be around, I think it's Commerce City, around Colorado Boulevard, 50th, if you know the area. We will have a few clones available. We'll have about 9 different strains. Let's see, we'll have that one up on the screen right now is Run. No, that one's Sweet Thing. My bad. That's the Cherry Pie Do-Si-Do.
Yeah, I'm going to throw up some pictures and you just tell us what they are.
That's Drago. That one is the GMO Forbidden Fruit BX1. Forbidden Fruit BX1 is Forbidden Fruit SFZ. Back to Forbidden Fruit.
Name that strain.
That one is Runs.
And all these are available, correct?
Yep. All these clones are available as long as you're 21 and older.
Anybody. Get on an airplane, motherfuckers.
That one is Cushman's. If you like heavy yielders and nice washers, go after that.
I know what that is.
That one is Banner 3.
If you want a real Bruce Banner 3 clone, Commerce City, Colorado, Saturday, sold by Dark Horse. Bang. What's this?
That one is Kitchen Sink number 2.
Yes.
And that one is Garlissimo, the Garlic Gushers.
There you go. There's a few more. What are the other ones you have that are not pictured?
The other ones that I have, let me go to my post real quick and I can tell you. Let me keep talking like this so I can buy some time. And I found the post. I will have Papaya Cake number 3. What else will I have? I have, I still haven't pulled it up yet, so if you need to go.
You fucked up.
I was watching the live, sorry.
What's your moment of fireside chats and you're not prepared?
All right, so I could pull it up faster on the phone. All right, so yeah, if anything, definitely stop by. Say, line up an hour earlier if you're trying to get some of these genetics, because I know a lot of people are trying to come from a lot of different places. But we will have Wedding Cake, Cushman's, Drago, Kitchen Sink 2, Banner 3, Papaya Cake 3, Garlic Gushers, and Sweet Thing.
Damn, son. Go get them. Go get them Saturday, Healing Tree. All right, everybody. Tonight's show, Todd P. McCormick, somebody who I have a lot of respect for. I was really stoked to get him on, and it's just I don't know. I'm really pumped about this, so I'm not going to waste any fucking time. Let's go right over to Todd. All right, everybody. We're here with Todd McCormick. I feel like I should call you Mr. McCormick because I just have a lot of respect for you, man. Would we call you Mr. McCormick or Todd or?
Todd's more than acceptable.
Okay. Um, well, yeah. Thanks for coming on the program, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of hear your story. I know a little bit. I know bits and pieces, but of all guests that we've had on this program, I don't know that I've been as intrigued as anyone as to have you on because I'm just sort of, I know it goes way back, and I kind of want to get into it. But before we go super into it, I guess we always ask people take us back to the origin story. First time you smoked cannabis, and first time you smoked, first time you grew, if they have any correlation.
Oh, for sure, for sure. When I was a kid, I was born in 1970, and my mom was a hippie. And I unfortunately started getting tumors in 1972 in my neck. My first 5 vertebrae are fused together solid, actually. And I got it 9 times in 8 years between ages 2 and 10. And it was a lot of tumors. And when I was around 9, I got it for the first time between my left lung and my heart. Usually it would grow in the bone marrow. It would cause the bone to break out and fucking get all screwed up. But this time it was more precarious because if it overtook my lung or my heart, it was basically the end of the show. And my mom had read in a magazine while she was sitting in a waiting room, a Good Housekeeping magazine, which ironically I went and found and got the copy of because I kind of didn't believe her. But she said there was this blonde lady on the cover and it had an article about cancer on the, like, advertised on it. So she picked it up to read it. And in the doctor's column, there was a conversation about medical cannabis use and marijuana use, we called it. But she and my pediatrician were really close. And she brought it up to him. And his attitude at the time, it was 1979, his attitude was, well, you have nothing to lose. And my mom, on the way home from the chemo and radiation session, she gave me my own joint and she slipped it to me when we were, like, I was in the car and she had me like slip down like under the dash line and puff this thing on my own. You know, she told me to sip it like it was a straw. And by the time I got home, I was ripped, you know, and I wanted some like sauteed spinach and shit. And my mom was just like all stoned herself and thought, what did I do to my kid? And she told me later that she called my doctor and he said, well, then tomorrow, you know, don't give him anything. And she said, okay. And the next day chemo sucked and we went home and I was not stoned and I was throwing up and she called him up and he said, well, give him some. So my mom came upstairs. And I was like fucking 8 or 9. And she gave me my own joint. And at the time I was into this song by Don McLean called American Pie. And you used to have to flip it over halfway through the 45. And I got ripped on this joint she had. And I was like singing along this song, which has lyrics that's like, today is the day I'm going to die. And you know, my fucking mom's like thrilled that I'm feeling better. But like the choice of music was not appreciated. But it's pretty funny at the same time. And then growing, my mom was a dealer, which was kind of unique. My mom was one of those 70s hippies that sold pot to her friends. And she, since I was like a little kid and I'd be at my grandma's house, her friends would call up and say, hey, Todd, is your mom home? I'd say, no. And they'd say, okay, can I come over anyway? And I'd go, yeah. So then they'd come over and my grandma would be there and they'd make small talk with my grandmother while they slipped me a 20 or a 40 and, you know, dollars worth of pot. And I'd go upstairs and my mom had 10 bags, 20 bags and 40 bags, like all bagged out. And I would grab them the bag and bring it down and slip it to them when my grandma wasn't looking. And they'd make small talk and tell my grandmother to tell my mom that they came by. And it was fucking hilarious. And when I was 12, I started. I was a little biker kid. My stepdad was like 6'5" with tats down to his wrists and long friggin' hair, and was like a monster looking guy. And at my 8th birthday, even though I was dying of cancer, he gave me a motorcycle. And then when I was 12, he gave me another motorcycle. And I started riding trails when I was like 12, and all the kids were like much older than me, like 16, 18, fucking off school, and I was only 12. And they stopped to smoke weed one day. And I never saw a brown weed before because my mom never had brown weed. And when I saw their pot, I was like, the fuck is that? And it was just this funny moment. they were like, "What do you know about marijuana, McCormick?" And I was like, "I know it ain't it ain't brown." And I was like, "Why is it brown?" I said, and they were like, "Because it comes brown." And I remember my remark was, "It don't grow brown." And I went and grabbed some green bud I had, and my whole life changed, man. I had a $20 bag of pot I got from my mom, and I split it. I rolled a couple joints out of it, split it in half, and brought half of it with me with a couple joints. And when so I pulled out a joint and I lit it, and I showed him this, like, I don't know, $6 bag of weed, maybe $8. And he looked at it and it was bigger than his bag of weed. And he was my neighbor, and he was like, "Will you sell me this?" And I was like, "How much will you give me?" And he said, "I'll give you $20 for it." And I was like, "Yeah." And then one of my other friends who lived like 3 houses over was like, "Can I get one too?" And I was like, "Yes." And it was 1982, and my gas tank held like not even a gallon, and I think gas was like 62 cents. And I like treated my friends to like burgers, fries, and a Coke, and it was like $4. So like $40 was a significant amount of money to a 12-year-old. And I came home and I started buying bags of pot off my mom and selling them to the older kids who rode motorcycles, and it worked out really, really, really well. And then I have Doberman, sorry. And then one day, one of them, I went over to go sell him a bag, and he was like a laborer, like did roofing and shit. And when I went over there, trying to shut the dogs up. When I went over there, he had this box, man, that was like white. He built it like maybe a little over 4 feet wide and like 2 feet deep. And he had fluorescent lights hanging in the box. And he had the Mel Frank grow book diagram with like the little wood bench and the fluorescent lights on the pulleys. And he had it to the T. And I was just blown away by it. And it was like seeing the color moment in The Wizard of Oz. Like life was never going to be black and white ever again. I traded him on the spot for the fucking book. He wanted a front to 20 bag, and I was like, no way. And I was like, you got to give me the book. And he was like 19 and had a car, so fuck him. He could go buy a book. I was 13 at the time, and I went home. I cleaned out my closet. I found the fluorescent lights in my grandma's basement. I found the soil, the pots, the watering can, the pulleys, and a timer in the front window. I just had to go get fertilizer. And I did. I went to this place called CVS, and I went in and I bought Peter's 20-20-20 fertilizer. And I swear to fuck, I felt like I was buying porn or something. Like I walked up to the counter and I put it on the counter. I was like, I'm getting this for my grandma. Guy was like, whatever, kid, $3. I was like, right. But it was pretty funny. And I went home and I planted my seeds, man, and I'm still growing to this day.
That's pretty amazing. So there is one thing I know about you, and we'll kind of you mentioned the cancer as a youth.
I'm sorry if my audio cut out.
No, we got you loud and clear. I
didn't realize that it did that. That's weird. It says it.
No, yeah, we have you loud and clear. Can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me.
I did just hear you say that, actually.
Okay,
Let me
check.
Yeah,
check, check.
Wait a minute. I'm almost there. I think that
check.
Now I'm there.
Check.
Yeah,
okay.
Apple did this stupid one with the H1 chip, and now it fucking tries to figure out what you want to connect to. So if you touch your iPad while you're using the headphones, it goes, "Oh, really? Oh, you want to play with this now?" And it's fucking ultimately pretty stupid.
Oh, good. So, you fixed it quickly. Yeah. So I was going to ask you. You touched on the cancer as a youth, but I know one thing about you, which was you were an early patriot for medical cannabis. Obviously, you used it in your youth, but I heard a story about you going to getting in trouble in Ohio. I think you got pulled over. You can tell a story if you want, or somewhere in the Midwest, and then you went to Amsterdam or Holland to get one of the first marijuana prescriptions, if you will, from a Holland doctor. You come back to America and try to use it as a legitimate prescription in America, like one of the first people to really try to use a medical marijuana card, if you will. There was a federal system that was really bogus, and then there was sort of what you were like the pioneer of this, if you will. But can you kind of talk to me about that whole episode of your life?
Sure. In as short a way as I can, I'll put it. In 1993, I read Jack Harris' book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and I was really, really, really blown away by it, and that's an understatement. And, for a lifetime, I had used cannabis medically, recreationally, however you want to put it. And it did a lot for me. And I felt that little burden of society that you were less than someone if you fucking were a pothead. So when I read his book, it really justified a lot of my behaviors. And I wanted to go say thank you to the guy. And I did. I went up there in January 94 and met Jack Herer, and we hit it off, became best friends. And I started working with him doing the 1994 cannabis initiative, where we were trying to gather 500,000 signatures to legalize cannabis on many levels in California at the time. And once I started hanging out with Jack, I kind of got a backstage pass to everywhere he went. And I became, when I was the editor of his book, we really were together a lot. And in 94, we went to Amsterdam together for the Cannabis Cup. And when I got there, there was a doctor in Rotterdam. His name was Dr. Trussell, who was writing prescriptions for medical cannabis. And I'm easy to basically show somebody, hey, my neck's fused together. I got a big scar on the back of my neck. Nobody questions it. And I went and I saw this guy, and he and I hit it off. He's a really nice guy. And he wrote me a prescription for medical cannabis, 10 grams a day, in November 1994. He told me at the time that it would make me legal in basically all international countries that had signed the Geneva Convention on psychotropic substances and drugs. And I thought, you're crazy, but thanks for the prescription. And at the time, I was spending a lot of time with LV Musica, who's one of my friends to this day. I absolutely adore her, but she is one of the people that started getting government cannabis back in the 80s, and they were sending her 300 joints a month for her glaucoma. And I had been on the road with her as an activist and been around her when she interacted with cops, and they didn't know what to do with this whole lady and her prescription, because she's adamant, she's really feisty, and she knows her shit. And if you try to argue with her, she'll freaking bury your ass. And she's just a tiger. If you look her up, ELVYMUSIKKA, she's a legend. She's a living legend, in my opinion. And she got busted for growing weed in Florida and beat them, and then sued the federal government to get on their compassionate investigational new drug program, and won. And she was the first lady that started getting cannabis grown by the University of Mississippi. And she inspired me quite a bit. And so that happened to me. And then I came back from Amsterdam, and I didn't believe the doctor, but me and LV and this guy named Richard Davis, who had a traveling hemp museum, we all went up to Sacramento because they have a really extensive law library. And we started looking up the 79 psychotropic substances. We started looking up the Single Treaty Geneva Convention, customs laws, because it became clear that they were not trying to prohibit the medical usefulness of cannabis. They were trying to prohibit the medical, like the not medical, but the potential nuisance that the drug could cause. So at the time, medical cannabis was lumped under the opium rules in the Geneva Convention, and this caused it to be medically prescribable. So when I realized that, it changed the way I perceived this prescription I had from the doctor, because under federal law, if you go to Europe and you get a Schedule I drug prescribed to you, you can bring back a 90-day supply, because they're not going to inhibit your ability to use a medicine. Yeah. So I was one of the first people to do that with cannabis from the Netherlands, because everyone else he was writing prescriptions for were staying in the Netherlands and they weren't pressing their luck. But
so hold on real quick. So you brought her back from the Netherlands, like with your prescription to challenge it?
Multiple times.
What happened to the customs guys? What did the customs guys say?
Well, in short, LV Musica, being the badass she is, used to routinely debate the DEA, because they would use her like grandma, like, hey, we're helping grandma, and when we get the information, then we'll give it to all of you. But, she's getting medical cannabis, so why don't you all just shut up? See, we don't have no heart. We have LV. Mm. And LV's attitude was like, hey, not only should I get it, but everybody else should have access to it. And she invited me, and Florida Normal at the time invited me to come to the University of Miami and debate the Southeast Quadrant leader of the DEA. His name was Wayne Rokes, and he was a heavy-set fellow that if he had laser beams for eyes, he would have fucking burnt me to a crisp that day. But he didn't expect me, and he wasn't prepared for this international prescription bullshit, and he didn't know what to do with it. And I was using LV as an example of their compassion and saying, hey, if really what you're trying to do is stop a narcotic nuisance, you shouldn't have a problem with me or people like me who are using it for a medical condition to have medical access. And if LV can have it, do you have a problem with me going to the Netherlands, picking up my prescription and bringing it back? And if looks could kill, he would have. But he said, I said, are you going to arrest me at customs if I go do that? And he said, I'm not going to arrest you at customs. And I was like, well, I know you're not, but will any of your men? You have a lot of them. And he says, the DEA is not interested in medical, cannabis. And I said, okay, you're all my witness. I'm going to fly out there tomorrow and we'll pick it up and we'll see what he said. See how if he's bluffing. Right. Yeah. So I actually had access to cash pretty good at the time. And I went back to LV's house in Florida and I called at the time, which is even crazier. I called Martiniere, which was owned by KLM, which is Dutch owned. And I said, hey, next flight out to Amsterdam, literally is what I fucking did. And they said, hey, smoking or non-smoking? And I was like, you can smoke on a plane? And she says, yeah, international flights over 9.5 hours, it's permissible. I said, well, I have a prescription for medical cannabis from a Dutch physician, and I'm supposed to smoke it every 2 hours.
Get out of here.
Could I? I have video. I have freaking home video. And she said, yes, but you're going to have to sit in the smoking section. And I was like, deal. Yes. And I did. It was really crazy. And I sat there and I made friends before I got on the plane with some girl that worked at a Dutch coffee shop who was coming back from like Bahamas, and she videotaped it. We sat together and it was great. I gave them a copy of my prescription and they said, okay. And I broke up some bud from Humboldt and friggin' smoked weed. The guy next to me offered me a Camel. I offered him a bud. We both said no. It was a great flight. And I got there. I saw my doctor. I told him what I did. He was a little stunned, like that he was a little stunned at the whole.
He's like,
why you debated my name? DEA agent.
Yeah, why you bring my name to this, right?
It was adorable, but he was cool with it. He's not going to get in trouble. So he wrote me a fresh prescription, and I went to these guys that were doing medical cannabis in Rotterdam, and I picked up a 3-month supply, just like the law allows, 90 days. And I'm not going to touch that again, actually. And I drove back, and I came back and I declared it at customs. It was really quite a magical moment. And I smoked weed on the way back. I flew into Colorado, and the stewardess walked up to me when I had the thing burning. She goes, you do know we're flying into America, don't you? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay. And I was like, I have a medical prescription. And she laughed. She was like, I wish you the best of luck, young man. And I was like, thanks, And I flew in and I got to customs and I had a video camera on me. So I put the cap on it with the beep function turned off and a fresh battery and fresh tape because I wanted to audio record it because technically you're not supposed to record in customs. But it's, too long now, so screw them. They already locked me up. But I recorded it because I wanted there to be record that I declared my medicine because I didn't want it to be like I tried to sneak it through. I went up to the counter and they said, do you have anything? And I said, to declare. And I said, yes, I have a 3-month supply of medical cannabis. Here's my prescription. And the guy looked at me and went, do you mean marijuana? And I said, yeah. And he was like, you're going to have to go over there, which was secondary inspection. So I did. And the guy gets there and he was like, what do you have? I said, I have medical cannabis, sir. Here's my prescription. And he was like, that's legal? I was like, yes, actually, a 3-month supply I have. And I had all the photocopies of the Single Treaty Geneva Convention, psychotropic substances. I had all the shit fucking highlighted, underlined, fucking little parentheses. Like I was trying to get my point across. And I also had the customs papers. And he started looking at it and was like, there was just this vibe of, I don't even want to deal with you right now. And then he pulled out the camera and the red light was on. And he said, is this recording? And I touched the button. I said, I must have bumped it, sir. And he said, you know what? I hope you have a great day. Well, I think we're all set here. And he closed the bag. It was a little round hemp bag. And he helped me carry my bags right through the double doors at customs. And he was like, good luck. And I was like, thank you, sir. And I just was like, fuck, and that was the start of me coming back. I told Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary, who were my friends at the time, and Jack, of course. And I was like, we all have to get a fucking doctor's note, because once we do, we can argue that we're legal, and they don't know what to do. And that's what caused us to start the change from I opened the San Diego Compassion Club in March 1995, maybe April. And I didn't sell cannabis. We redistributed to people that were sick, donated material. I grew a lot of what we donated, but not the point. But by doing so, and there not being any cash transactions, I didn't feel like they could really hang me for capitalism. And that's why I called it a compassion club. Dennis was selling weed in San Francisco here, but that was different, man. San Francisco is a much different climate than the very conservative San Diego that I lived in. And I didn't think that they were going to fly with me selling weed.
Sure.
So I didn't. And, but that's why I started the Compassion Club. And then I kind of got an offer from somebody in Rhode Island that I think was, in retrospect, more of a setup, because I only had phone conversations, but we were going to set up another cannabis club in San Diego, redistributing medical cannabis at a church in Providence, which was going to be pretty cool, for free, no profit. And I got busted on my way to Rhode Island, because I'm from Rhode Island. That's where I grew up. That's where I had cancer. And I got busted on the way there in Ohio with like 30 pounds of weed and hash and other goodies. And they don't have a sense of humor about that. They were fucking giving me and my girlfriend like potentially 30 years each for 30 pounds. And it was a weird interaction, because I had the DEA raided my Compassion Club literally like a week later, and they were holding me like on 150 grand bond, and then I couldn't get out because I didn't have 150 grand. And then I had a hearing, because they basically took a month to charge me, because I was in the middle of Bryan, Ohio, which is nowhere, cornfield. And by that time, the media got into it. My mother was doing interviews, and the AP took interest in the case. And when they did, they started sitting into the hearings. And my first hearing, the judge let me stand up and make a case for myself, because I was not really happy with my public pretender. And I told the judge, hey, I'm not a drug dealer. I got a Compassion Club. I'm an activist. I've had cancer. I have an international prescription. I'm like, please take me seriously. And the judge was actually really cool. And he took the various papers I had, and he said, if you get one American doctor to validate your Dutch physician's prescription, I'll let you have your medical cannabis. I'll consider letting you have it while you're incarcerated. And I was just like, whoa. And I went back and I got Dr. Lester Grinspoon of Harvard. I got Dr. John Morgan of the City University of New York Medical School, all my good friends. And I got Dr. Todd McCormick, who's like the grandfather of medical cannabis. He wrote the Indian Hemp Drugs Commission report, and just phenomenal activists. All of them I knew personally at the time. So the judge didn't know what the frig to do. My bond went from 150 grand to 2 grand, with the conditions that I leave the state after they release me, and that they would figure out a way to like make this go away. Because after he got the doctor's letters, he didn't give me my weed. And the AP released the story, and literally at the front page, it said inmate to smoke pot at CCNO. And the judge hated it. The front page of the Toledo Blade had it. And then the USA Today picked it up, saying Todd McCormick left his home to help the seriously ill. The only problem is the help he intends to deliver is illegal. And then it ended their editorial supporting medical cannabis, saying sick people deserve help, not a ticket to jail, which was pretty powerful. And
pressure,
and then all the news media showed up at the fucking jail, and suddenly it was like cause celeb case, and they just wanted me to go away, and I did. And then and that kind of progressed, and that
let me ask you
is
real
kind of
quick
what
about
me in activism.
Sorry to
go right
interrupt you real
ahead.
quick,
Sorry
but
to be long-winded.
No, I actually love it. I love everything you're saying. But I'm just curious, how did the initial traffic stop go? Like, did you say, "Hey, I'm fucking Todd McCormick, man," and like, I smoke on international flights. Like, I'm the man. Here's my fucking papers. But you had a lot on you, probably more than your 90-day supply. So it kind of puts your papers a little bit out the window too, possibly. Or how did that traffic stop go?
30 pounds of weed.
Yeah.
30 pounds of weed, and everything was marked not for sale, medical use only, which they hated. And and at the time I wasn't broke, and it was me and my girlfriend in a camper van with mountain bikes and laptops and portable cell phones, and these guys from Ohio just was like, what do we have here?
Right.
And it was not so good. They initially pulled me over because they said my rear window curtains were closed. And the judge actually dismissed the case later on, saying that upon review of the video from the trooper's car, my curtains appeared to be approximately 9 inches apart, which would facilitate the use of the rearview mirror. And he threw it all out. Fuck this case. And but my girlfriend was great at the time. She didn't even shed a tear. I'm kind of adamant, so like I was polite because I plan on not cooperating, and I don't want my ass kicked. And I want him to be nice to me because I'm not going to cooperate, and I'm trying to like be nice. So I talked to him about history and everything, and they were amused, but they fucking arrested the shit out of us. We got pulled over by a 5-car drug interdiction team right after the turnpike toll booth, and there is no exit 1. So we got pulled over before exit 2. They were sitting there. Mm-hmm. And they do that a lot back then. This was, basically what they did to everybody. And the judge, when he wrote my dismissal, he actually gave a really stern kind of commentary on the drug interdiction teams and how he thought they were just such shit in Ohio, which I thought was pretty cool. And
hell yeah.
But yeah, the case was interesting. That's kind of what got me back to High Times again, because New York Times covered it in September of '95. People can still look it up. And High Times offered to fly me out for the Cannabis Cup so I would show 60 Minutes around and introduce them to my doctor, because they wanted to have like a more serious take on cannabis rather than just a bunch of hippies getting high in Amsterdam.
Sure. Did that go down? Did you work with 60 Minutes
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, Morley Schaefer and I fucking went all over Amsterdam, went to my doctors in Rotterdam, fucking guy chain smoked cigarettes while looking down at cannabis. And I was thinking, oh man, you're going to be dead before me. But it was really a trip. And but he was super nice. Morley Schaefer was totally cool. And I think he was like, he's more of an alcohol tobacco generation. So he was just like, this is such hippie shit. But he was there. And they liked, I don't want to say they liked it, but the producers were so considerate that they did not include the medical side of the story, because they didn't want to discredit what I was trying to do. Because when they talked to my mom and talked to some of the doctors I had, they realized this isn't High Times. This isn't bullshit. This they're trying to really make a difference.
Right,
and
real.
People that are sick deserves real. And so it was pretty heavy. I ended up staying in Amsterdam while waiting for the judge's decision, because when I went back in October for the dismissal, I asked if I could have my passport so I could go to Amsterdam with High Times, and the judge said yes. And so I did, and it was really fucking amusing. And then when I got there, I just ended up staying. I ended up scoring a job for a magazine called High Life as their editor-in-chief. And life, I don't know, took an interesting turn. And living in Amsterdam at the time was like stepping into the future, because you could walk into a coffee shop, buy hash or grass. Growing seeds was legal at the time. And a lot of my friends were starting seed companies. Serious Seeds had just started the year before. Yep. And I started working with them. I'm still good friends with Simon to this day.
You work with Simon? I didn't know that.
I worked for Simon's freaking... I have a lot of experience growing pot, but he has a lot of experience in school learning how to be a botanist. Yeah. So I had nothing but respect for him. He's so legit. Serious Seeds is great.
He's a legit teacher, is he not? Sorry to interrupt you.
Simon's the shit. He was teaching me falconing when I was living in Amsterdam, which was really cool.
Yep.
In a falconer. And
as well.
I worked there. I lived there basically. Yeah, I did. I had keys, but I had my own office, and I worked there for over a year actually with old Ed Holloway, he turned 80 that year, and he's the old man that was credited with teaching Renaud Brunning how to grow seedless in the 70s. It's fucking great.
That's awesome.
And truly a beautiful experience. Renaud Brunning was another inspiration. He was really adamant hippie activist, and most of the guys in Amsterdam were more businessmen than activists, but Renard was a different breed. He was more like an American. He listened to the Grateful Dead all day in his shop, and it was fucking great, man. We used to have sign up said Utopia. The place was awesome.
How was that herb in the coffee shops at that time in your life versus dispensary weed today? If you could make a quick cross-reference.
Same thing. Depends on who grows it.
Yeah.
At the time I was getting it. I was growing a little bit of the bud that was going into greenhouse. Simon was growing. The seedless pot we grew was marketing to sell the seeds. So we would grow seedless Cali Mist, seedless AK, seedless Chronic, and we'd have some people growing it hydro, some people growing it bio, because we had both sides of the menu to feed. And we would do it basically so that if you went into a coffee shop, you bought some Cali Mist, you might buy some seeds, which was where the money was really at. So it was more like marketing. And like I stood at the airport one year with joints and business cards and plastic with the Chronic AK and Cali Mist with my friend Gene, giving them out to Americans who showed up. So that way they'd smoke the joint and realize, okay, this is Cali Mist. Maybe I'll buy some seeds. So it was cool. And like at the time, Neville was growing Neville's Haze and shit that you could get at Greenhouse Tollstrot. And there was some really good fucking weed. Katsu was like all hazes. There was good quality around. Bluebird always had good shit. They bought our fucking AK from us and our Cali. So there was good weed out there, but a lot of it was commercial because people wanted, that sweet, big buds, and they would mix it with tobacco, or they would also mix it with tobacco and hash. So the weed didn't have to be super, super potent. Very few of us were smoking pure. And when I rolled 2 gram joints, that were like big spliffs, my Dutch friends always looked at me like, dude, are you okay? Like, you're kind of abusing that. And I'd be like, come on, man. And it was always a good time. One of my good friends, Tom, was growing the NL5 by Hayes that won the 1996 Cannabis Cup. It was grown in soil, and it won the Hydroponic Cup because no one knows what they're friggin' talking about. Sure. And it was just great weed. And so there was both sides of it.
I was going to say that NL5 Haze went on to become legendary. I mean, so many strains popped out of there. The Cough in Colorado, and the Piff is another one out of New York. And it all comes down to kind of that same time period, that same batch of stuff. And you guys went on to release stuff at that time period that would just went on to be staples in the world. And that was the epicenter of cannabis at the time. And you were right in the forefront.
It was absolutely, you're absolutely right. It was the pulse of the nation because there was no Barcelona. There was no legalization. I mean, Switzerland was letting you grow some hemp at the time, but everybody was like, they had so much of it. It was like, hey, it was different back then, man. It was really cool. Ironically, that the year that won, Arian had purchased the NL5 from Tom and called it NL5 Haze by Mist. And when it won, he got up there and he gave this great speech how he bred together the 2 most powerful plants in Amsterdam and made this new great variety. And it wasn't true. It was just NL5 by Haze. Yeah, I busted his balls about that one day and he laughed. He's like, you've got too good of a memory.
How's the NL that you're working with now compared to the NL from back then? Because I saw you got like the NL2, NL5.
It's fucking amazing. That in itself could be a really long program. So back in the day in 1984, Neville was befriended by a guy named Seattle Greg, who sent him Northern Lights seeds back in the day. And that's where Northern Lights came from. The Northern Lights numbers 1 through like 11 or 12 were actually numbered from the most Afghan to the furthest away from Afghan. And he sent the hybrids to Neville, not the purest indica, which I also have. And years later, Greg was a legend. I don't know how else to put it. He was not someone that I knew the last name of. It took me a while to find out his name in all reality, because like Neville and Ben Dronkers and the guys at Sensi weren't really trying to come clean with where they got the genetics in all reality. And at the time, people didn't want to be snitched on. So there was a kind of a cloak of secrecy that also had to go along with everything, or you were a rat. So you didn't want to be a rat. But as a historian, I always wondered. And then Neville passed away, and this guy named Greg left a comment on my Facebook page talking about how, like, may my genetics live through you. And I'd written an article about Neville called Legacy of a Legend after he passed away, and fucking messaged Greg and said, are you by chance the guy that gave Northern Lights to Neville? And yeah, he's in his 70s. He's a former Marine. He freaking got out of the Vietnam in 1969, went back to Washington, was taking classes at University of Washington, and all into botany. He's in his 70s, man, and he's still actively studying the botany and ecology of cannabis to this day. He'll like you get him on the phone, he's talking about fucking, sugar levels and like testing them, and like it's brilliant. It's just I adore him. But he, at the time when we started talking in 2018, told me he always wanted this original haze and the original skunk, but Neville never sent it to him. And him and Neville had a falling out about a year or so after they met. Neville tried to go behind his back and kind of was like, it fell out of flavor with him, so he cut him off. And at that time, Neville was figuring out that he could knock off the seeds anyway, and he didn't really need to buy these pure varieties from people anyhow. So Greg, I sent him the original haze and the original skunk one because I happen to have them from Skunkman Sam. And then like a year later, he calls me up and he says, hey, my sister passed away. And I said, I am sorry to hear that. And he said, well, thank you, but that's not why I'm calling. My family found some of my old seeds stashed in her freezer, and I want to send you some. And I said, really?
Yes.
And I couldn't friggin' believe it. And he did. And he sent me Purest Indica, which is originally Northern Light started from this guy, Murphy Stevens. So this book happens to be on my desk. I've been reading it. This was published in 1975, one of the absolute best cannabis cultivation books in the 70s to come out. He had cuttings, he had motherings, he had CO2 enrichment, he had 10 by 20 trays and Rockwell cubes in this 1975 book. It was amazing. And he had a Seattle shop called the Indoor Sun Shop, I believe it was. And it was amazing. And Seattle, Greg was in the same area, befriended him. And in 1979, Murphy Stevens, or Steve Murphy, gave him 4 Afghan seeds. Greg F2'd them and made more seeds, started spreading them around to his friends, and immediately started crossing it with some of the Afghan, and he was getting from both California and Oregon, and he started making the NL1s and NL2s. He said he did not make the NL5. It was made by a guy named, I think, Herbie, who worked at the Murphy's shop in Seattle, and crossed it with what he thought was a Hawaiian, but Greg always thought was a Northern Mexican. And pretty amazing. And to me, it's amazing because I don't think the genetics can lie. And when you open, I'm a book collector of all pot books. And when you open this book, it has this really distinct picture on the front page of Purest Indica, the Murphy Stevens Afghan. And I'm growing it now, and I have pictures that look exactly like that plant downstairs. Yeah, it blows my mind. And there's 45 years in between taking those pictures, but the seeds that he gave me are supposedly from the early 80s. They had pretty decent germination, but he said they've been in the freezer the whole time. And if you're freezing seeds, that's the way to do it. It's to not take them in and out, and to not have a fluctuation of humidity. So, and if they went in when they were really fresh, if they were dried properly and really fresh, it's amazing. Second to these, the oldest seeds that I've had were 23 years old from Mel Frank. In 1996, he made some skunk seeds, and he put them in the refrigerator, and he let me get some in 2019. And I realized they were still skunky, like acrid. And he had gotten them in 1988 from Skunkman Sam and only reproduced them that one time in 96. So the seeds I have of Skunk 1 have literally only been reproduced twice, once in 96 by Mel Frank and once in 2020 by me, since the 80s. And I don't know how old those genetics were when Mel Frank got them from Skunkman Sam in 88, because Skunkman Sam had only been in Amsterdam since like 85. And it's really plausible to think that he could have given his old friend seeds that were made before he arrived in Amsterdam. They could have easily been from the Santa Cruz stock. And when I asked Sam about it, he described the evolution of skunk as basically, you had Afghan crossed with Colombian gold, which was the original skunk plant. And he was an acid-eating hippie who had this crazy goal of making a relatively true breeding variety that when his acid-eating friends would breed together those brother and sister plants, they would not separate. They would create a uniform and consistent variety that they could reproduce over and over again. That was his goal, because most cannabis is an obligate outcrosser, and you need to cross it with dissimilar genetics, or you get basically all of those recessive genes kind of popping their heads out in their progeny, which isn't what he wanted. And he achieved it by mixing together the Afghan Colombian gold with Acapulco gold. because I asked him once, how did you make a true breeding plant? And he said, Todd, I didn't. Nature did. I just had to breed together enough plants to find the combination that worked.
Right.
And I was like, wow. And I love it. And then he wrote this really great article in 79 called Sun, Soil, Seeds, and Soul. We just reprinted it and grow it so good. And I guarantee you that even though that article is like 41 or 2 years old at this point, you'll learn shit from it. Most of these so-called breeders and what I call pollen chuckers can't even grasp it, never mind write that article now. And he was doing that in a magazine called Blotter, which was the LSD culture, because his neighbor down the street went on to be the guy that made the book called the Psychedelic Encyclopedia. And there was like, down the street from him was the dude who bred Hayes, a surfer named G, and down the street on the other side from him was RL, the other guy who made the Hayes poster. So that little hill up in Santa Cruz in the early 70s was popping. And they made some good shit that lasted forever. And that's how we have Hayes to this day, because Sam does not take credit for breeding it. He just saved it. And as a seed saver, he saw the value in collecting the original Hayes genetics and then inbreeding it with itself so that he wouldn't lose its uniqueness. And even though when he would inbreed it together, it would create more of a separation of the genetics, he didn't mind that because it gave him more to sort through when he was doing his own phenotype selections for his future breeding projects. And the original Hayes I have is the only genetic I have that does not have any Afghan in it, because all modern cannabis does.
Sure. I mean, your selections, we can talk a little bit about your seed company. I think it's with Mel Frank, I believe, but it's called AG Seed Co. Yes.
Yeah, Authentic Genetics. I picked up the URL AG Seed Co. when I was looking for authenticgenetics.com and realized I probably couldn't get that. And, Ag Seed, we've always kind of flown under the radar. So Ag Seed is kind of like just a smile. Yeah, it's just Ag Seed, but
that works,
it's all it really is. Yeah, when they changed the laws for hemp and they removed hemp from the CSA, I saw this as an opportunity because hemp seeds or cannabis seeds contain 0 cannabinoids. So they definitely fall under the less than 0.3% THC barrier. So all parts of the plant that do not contain 0.3% or more THC, now it's 1%, were made legal. So the stalk, the fiber, the seed is all legal now. And you would have to grow out the seeds for there to be any cannabinoids present. But you could say the same thing about industrial hemp. Your farm wouldn't go, your field wouldn't go hot until flowering because the carbolic acids build up over time. They don't just like jump out of the gate 20% or whatever. So if you harvest your crops early, you can avoid the THC levels going up. And it's the same with, basically all cannabis, because technically under the law, all cuttings are now legal because cuttings don't really contain, unless you're re-vegging a flower.
Right.
Most cuttings that are in veg don't have any cannabinoids.
Test, yeah, I'm with you.
That's right.
Which is why we've
They'll
seen an explosion of clones on the market too, because there's been a lot of, breeders have dominated the genetic market for a while, but now clones have emerged. But speaking of clones or famous clones, there's one I got to ask you. I don't know if you have any correlation to it or any relation to it at all, but you're so well versed and go so far back with all of these strains that I kind of got to ask you. OG Kush, I know it's one of those strains, but what was your earliest recollection of OG Kush? When did you first come into contact with it, and what do you know of the OG Kush story, and what's your take?
1997, when I came back from Amsterdam, January 97 in LA, we were just calling it the Kush at the time. And I'm just such a fucking stickler. I was like, that's the wrong terminology. Because I came back from growing Hindu Kush and it's much more leafy. And this was like much less leafy. And it smelled and it reminded me of Northern Lights, because in Amsterdam, I was hanging out with the Dronkers, and I was invited up to the Cannabis Castle numerous times, and I got to smoke the Northern Lights that they had, and which were the parent plants to the crosses that they were making. So I had pretty good experience with Northern Lights. So I felt like it was Northern Lights. And so long story short, I was given a clone of it before prison, and I lost it. And when I had to go to prison, I got busted in 1997 in a Bel Air mansion with 4,116 plants. And seemed normal at the
We're
time.
gonna talk
But
about that next. I'm sorry, you can't just glaze
but-
right over that one. Yeah, we can talk about that
right,
next. Okay.
right. And then I had to go to prison for 5 years because I absolutely refused to cooperate. And but in that time I was given it, and then when I got out of prison, I back to not cooperating. I came home to all my friends in LA, and I got released from that halfway house in May of '04, and I was broken in debt basically. And I got a house and a place together by October, and in November, the guys that basically offered it to me before. Well, not the same guys, but the gentleman that got it to me the first time got it to me the second time. His nickname was Mad Dog. I didn't know his real name. I thought he was fake, and he got it to me. And then a couple months later, I inquired to my friend if I could sell cuttings of it because I didn't have any other way to get on my feet other than basically growing weed. And it's not like you can easily go get a job after 5 years in friggin' prison when you're on probation. So yeah, back to growing weed. So I started a little nursery called Select Strains, and I started selling OG Kush cuttings, Super Silver Haze, Romulan, Sensi Star, M39, quite a few others actually. But OG was the big rock star. And when I asked about it, my friend came back and said, "Yo, he passed away, so I don't think it matters." So in maybe January, February, I think he passed away February, I started selling OG Kush cuttings in LA. And I think I was the first one because the guys that had it, surely, I don't think I did them a favor by releasing it because they kind of had a lock on it. But that went on for a while until I got busted at my nursery and got another federal felony conviction for growing weed and more probation. But that's a different story. But I've had OG Kush ever since. And then years and years later, Adam Dunn was doing a podcast with one of the guys that cooperated against me, who I met in Amsterdam, named Dave Richards. He's such an idiot. He cooperated against himself on Adam's show, and he told on himself because Adam's a smart ass. I've known him since '94. We both grew up in Rhode Island, and I met him in '94 in Amsterdam. So I've known Adam and his mom and his crew for a while. I've always liked them, but when Adam was talking to him, this guy Dave was basically telling Adam that, the cops were trying to charge me with all these houses I didn't grow weed with and not charge me for the house I grew weed at. So Adam says sarcastically, "Oh, you should have told the DEA that you didn't grow weed in all these houses and just to charge you for that house." And he said, "I did. That's exactly what I told him." And they went and they raided the house, and it was my publisher's house, and he didn't grow weed there, and he was fucking lying. And he says, and they went back again and raided it, and I told him where the generator was. And I was blown away because the dumb son of a bitch admitted all this. He admitted to cooperating with the DEA on Adam's show. So next time I saw Adam, I gave Adam a big friggin' hug because I knew it all along, but I didn't have proof until the guy talked so much. He talked on himself. Yeah. And so it was kind of a trip. And unfortunately, that story was weird. I came back from Amsterdam and I was working with Jack, and every time somebody would copy passages from our book, he would have me read the book to see if they plagiarized us or if they cited us correctly. So he handed me this really long 800-page book called Ain't Nobody's Business If You Do, The Absurdity of Consensual Crimes in Our Free Society. And the book was as long as its title, but it was fucking awesome. And the publisher was all about prostitution and legal and gambling and what he called consensual crimes, because his attitude was cigarette smoking is not a victimless crime because you can suffer from getting yourself sick from smoking, but it's consensual because hey, you're consenting to smoking the cigarette, so it should be your body, your choice. And I really like that. And then when I was in Amsterdam, I ended up getting a meeting with this guy because he sent a liaison out to Amsterdam because he got cancer and AIDS, and he wanted to write a book about medical marijuana. And he sent a guy to Positronics to meet another fella, and the guy met me, and my magazine was out, so he sent my magazine back to Peter, and Peter called me up, asked me for a meeting, and I went out to LA, had a meeting with him, and it was one of those ridiculous LA stories, man. I walked in, I didn't have an agenda. He already did research on me, and he was just we started talking. He was like, "You're a fucking walking encyclopedia." And I was like, "Well, I'm kind of well studied on this." And at that point, I'd been growing 13 years. And I had about 50,000 seeds that I brought back from Amsterdam. And, you know, at $10 a seed is like $500,000 worth of seeds, give or take, you know, $5 to $10. And he was blown away, and he offered me $250,000 if I wouldn't sell my seeds, if I would find a place in LA and start growing and write about it and make grow videos. And then he wanted to put me like in on the road at like hotels teaching people how to grow weed, which seemed like a really good idea because he wrote this whole self-help book called the Life 101 series of books, and he became a multimillionaire going around telling people to think positive and shit.
Sure.
So
Tony
he
Robbins
was like,
type of guy.
nailed it. He was a Oprah book club fucking guy before she had a book club, and he killed it. He was a 5-time New York Times best-selling author on 5 different subjects. Guy's a monster. And multi-millionaire, and just such a fuck it be damned attitude towards life. And even though I wasn't gay, we both had cancer, and he was from the East Coast, and we both had a similar, you know, fuck it attitude, and we got along great. And he handed me $250,000, man, and said, "Go find yourself a place to live. You know, fuck off. You know, meeting's over for the day." Yeah, and I tripped. I went down the street, and it was just weird. My friend was flipping through flat faxes, and I was driving down Sunset, and he was like, "Dude, 5-storied castle-styled mansion on hill." I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "And it's on Stone Canyon." And it's just as he said that, the light turned red, and I stopped, and we were fucking at Stone Canyon. And he's like, it's like it's a message from God or something. And I was like, so we turned up the street, and we went up there, and it was this ridiculous 5-storied castle in the middle of Bel Air, and we just laughed. And I got an appointment, and they rented me the crib. It was really that easy. And I moved in. First mansion I ever wandered into was my own, and I had a credit card that had no limit, and I had $250,000 in the bank, and I felt like Proposition 215 was gonna give us justification. And I saw a lawyer, and I said, "Hey, how can I avoid getting arrested?" And he said, "Don't sell any weed, because the Commerce Clause basically covers you if you sell weed. If you just grow weed in your home and consume it all there, technically they really can't come bust you because it's not a federal case until you sell weed." But I didn't realize that they would charge me with intent to distribute and charge me anyway. So that's how that went down. And then they decided that his what's called advice of counsel, which is actually a motion to dismiss, because I wasn't trying to necessarily it's not like I ran into a bank, stick them up. I like went to a lawyer and was like, "How can I extract money from the safe, sir?"
Right.
Yeah. And so he gave me advice, but they wouldn't let it come in. They just railroaded me, and I wouldn't cooperate. So I accepted a 5-year sentence so I could continue to fight my case. And I lost my appeal, but I did 5 years anyway. And OG Kush, OG Kush is what kind of saved my ass when I got out of prison.
So you obviously get out of prison. We've gone sort of through the origin or through the story. Amsterdam, you get out, you do the Bel Air mansion. What's next after the
fast
mansion?
Forward to Josh. Oh, I'll tell you that. But then Josh got pissed. Josh G, who's really the guy that was the roommate with Mad Dog, he got annoyed with the Adam story because it was just straight bullshit. And I get this call from Josh, and at the time I really wasn't into the "where did you get OG" stories, because like I've got like when I started releasing OG clones in LA, every asshole and their mother was like, "You don't really got OG," and I was like, "Oh, fuck yourself." But I really did, and years later he hit me up and he said, "Hey, where did you get OG?" And I called him on video and I said, "You tell me, who would I have gotten it from?" And the first name he said was right, and I said, "Okay, you got my attention. Who's Mad Dog?" And he fucking held up a picture and he said, "Bro, that was my roommate." And he's, had a tearful moment. He was like, he was my best friend. And he said, "Todd, he used to cut out articles about you and hang them on the refrigerator so I could read them after work." He's like, "We both really admired your activism, because when I got busted in LA, it was like the biggest bust in LA County history. No one had 4,000 plants, never mind in the house." So everybody heard about it. And then Woody Harrelson bailed me out of jail, and Larry Flint's attorneys defended me. So it was mainstay news for a minute, like every time anything happened, it was on the fucking news.
How did Woody bail you out? Was it just because it was through the news and it was an AP story, so they were like, "What?" Or do you know Woody and know these guys through your activism, and you were just like, "Yo, I'm in trouble." Like, word got to them that you're in trouble, and they're like, I got the cake. I'll come and get the money and get him out."
Friends, man. I was friends with Jack Herrer. Jack Herrer knew these people that had a place called Hempstead, which made like backpacks and wallets. And they were friends with Woody because he invested in their company. And one day I got a call from this guy, Chris, saying, "Hey, Todd, because I had already invited him up. We'd been friends for years, and I was like back in town, and come see my LA place. And yeah, by the way, I'm back from Europe, and I have a mansion in Bel Air. You should come up and get high. Everybody was willing.
Yeah.
So he came up, and he had Woody's little brother with him, Brett. And Brett came up, and he'd been a long time grower. Brett started growing, high when he was friggin' 12. Started planting seeds out in the field way in the back, and it worked. And we hit it off. Brett was like joking around, just like stayed all day. And he was like, I'm your new best friend. And I was just like, yeah, whatever. And then the next day he came over, and then he took me up to his Malibu place. And when he opened the garage, he had these two like GSXR, like really hypercycle bikes, like one was carbon fiber, like fucking insane bike, $100,000 fucking bike. And then his old bike. And I was like, oh, wow. And he said, you ride? And I said, yeah. So we went riding, like shredding canyons and shit. And when we stopped at PCH, he said, you're the first guy I haven't had to stop and wait for in a long time. And I was like, really? He said, yeah. And he goes, and I don't feel like driving you back to Bel Air, so you could take the bike if you want to, and I'll fucking come see you tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So I took this fucking super bike, 1200cc fucking Gixxer home, and fell in love with it and never gave it back really. And he and I started just spending a lot of time together. And Woody was doing a movie called Palmetto, and we hit it off. And he came out, and we just became friends, man. Woody just came. He's a really sweet person. His whole family, Laura, his whole wife, his whole family's super cool, and he's just real. I don't know another way to put it. And when I got busted, he reacted the way he did. He thought my bond was $1 million. He was in Australia at the time, and he told his assistant to get me out. And when he called Larry Flint, who I'd already met, Larry just sent his lawyers over. I wasn't arrested for 11 hours, and it was 6 a.m., and I was already meeting Larry's attorneys, who were there, like 3 of them. Like, hi, Larry sent us. We're your new attorneys, and we're going to get you out of prison today. And I was just
That's
like,
fucking awesome,
what's my
man.
bond? And they're like, $1 million. And I was just like, for growing weed? And I couldn't believe it. No guns, no drugs, nothing. But they lowered it to $500,000, and he paid cash, got me out of jail. And I fought them for 3 years, and went to prison. And Woody's father, not that I'm trying to glamorize this in any way, but when Woody was younger, his dad was arrested for murdering a federal judge, and he died in prison for this. And at the time, I think it really was traumatic to lose his dad and to have no ability to help. And when I got raided and they arrested me, and he was in a position to help, I think he couldn't do anything but help, because and he did. And when he came home, he's a fucking sweetheart. He even stopped smoking weed with me for a little while when I got out of prison, because I had to stop smoking weed. And really, really amazing. I mean, we're still friends. I mean, I think the world of him. Still friends with him to this day. But
Have you sold
story.
your life story rights to anybody? Because this whole thing is a fucking wild movie. I see what was that movie when they were fucking smuggling on the planes or whatever? Tom Cruise, and either way, bullshit. But
It's getting close to an hour.
But
I'm sorry, it's kind of long interview. We wrote a movie about it. One of my good friends is Aaron McCruder, who makes the Boondocks, and he implored me to write a story about this. When I got out of prison, in short, I was really like hot to be an activist. I wanted to kind of affect change more than I ever did. After sitting in fucking prison for 5 years, I had more of a fuck you attitude than I ever did. And after sitting in prison for 5 years, it changed my attitude too, because it's like, if you can put me in a medium security prison for half a decade, I can pretty much put up with any of your bullshit. So I had a different attitude when I got out of prison, that's for sure. And I got together with some people, and got together with my doctor friends, Dr. Lester Grinspoon and Dr. Todd McCormick, and we made the first movie, The Union, The Business Behind Getting High.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Rogan was in it. Tommy Chong was in it. It was great. We got really good. We did really well with that. It came out right at the same time people started stealing movies. So everybody stole our movie, which was quite a compliment. Thank you to this day. Yeah, and it was great. You can still steal it on the internet. It's fucking awesome. I highly recommend it. And then I got the opportunity to start throwing parties at the Playboy Mansion for the Marijuana Policy Project, because before I went to prison, I was fortunate enough to be hanging around at the Playboy Mansion and friends with Hef. And he started NORML. A lot of people don't know that, but it was Hugh Hefner's money in 1970 that founded the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, which is pretty deep. And when I met him, he was really proud of what I was trying to do and invited me over, and it was just not a bad place to be. And so when I got out in 2007, 2008, 2009, I put on parties at the Playboy Mansion, and that was kind of cool. And then in 2009, I even let my mom come to the parties because they were just marijuana fundraisers, and I got a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Playboy Mansion with my mom there. How strange, but it was kind of cool. And then I rented the LA Convention Center. I rented 100,000 square feet in June of 2009, and I held the THC Expo. I was trying to show that we were a demographic that should be taken seriously. And I felt like the best way to do that was to kind of amplify the capitalist side that we represent, because there's a huge amount of commodities being traded around us: grow equipment, fertilizers, bongs, classic pipes, glass pipes. It goes on. And I did that. It came out really, really good. We had like 40 to 50,000 people show up on Saturday, June 13th, and it was a huge success. I was thrilled.
Yeah, I got a light from Kind LED there. I was in the building.
Wow, thank you. So then you remember it was a fucking zoo, and
Yeah.
Tommy Chong let me borrow his electric car.
Yeah.
I was friends with Tommy, and I called him up and I was like, "Hey Tommy, do you still have your electric car?" And I was totally stoned and didn't think of how I was positioning the question. And he said, "Yeah, Todd, I do." And I was like, "Can I borrow it?" And he was quiet for a good minute, and he said, "Yeah, I suppose you can." He said, "Where is it you want to go?" I said, "Oh, I don't want to go anywhere, Tommy. I'm renting the LA Convention Center, and I'm going to put on the big THC Expo, and I want to showcase your environmental side, because I think a lot of people don't realize how environmental you are." You know, he drives like a blacked out Prius, and he has electric hot rods, and he walks the walk. He's like total environmental stoner. And I adore the guy. He's such a grounded, intelligent, awesome person.
I
And
concur. I know him well, and we've worked with him in Colorado a lot. And yeah, I know him really well. Like I say,
yes.
you're dead on.
I adore him. So he was blown away, and that's why he was there that day, because he set me up with Hippie Motors, and they brought down the car, and he came down Saturday morning to see what I was up to, and fucking we got flooded, and he was so proud of me. And it was just we went through the same halfway house on Hollywood and Vine within a month of each other, because they prosecuted him for bongs while I was in prison for pot. And so we kind of went through the same shit, and he didn't cooperate. He said, "Fuck you, lock me up." Yeah. And I got nothing but respect for Tommy. I always will. And so I've had this really weird journey. And then Jack passed away in 2010, sadly. And I reorganized his book and put out the 12th edition of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And then in 2011, the Seattle Hemp Fest turned 20, excuse me. So I helped Vivian McPeak put together Protestival, a 20-year retrospective Seattle Hemp Fest. And then in 2012, I was fortunate enough to be getting the Cannabis Culture Award in Barcelona with Dr. Lester Grinspoon and Sir Richard Branson, of all stoners. And I used the opportunity to ask him if he had seen our first documentary. And he said, "Yeah, I thought it was brilliant." So I said, "Maybe you'd be in our second one?" And he said, "Maybe." And then he said yes. And then he liked it so much, he launched it for us on October 1st, 2014, which was, I think, the biggest compliment we could have gotten, because you really can't ask a billionaire to do anything he doesning feel like doing.
For real.
It was pretty epic. And then it got translated. The Culture High was the movie. It got translated into 15 languages. It was shown in 70 countries for 3 years on Netflix. And I would like to think it made a little bit of an impact, yeah.
Hell yeah,
And,
man. You must have the world's most powerful stoner index I've ever met, of anyone I've ever met, dude. Like, literally.
I've met some peeps,
you
bro.
got some
I've been out of the house.
This man knows some powerful people. I told you half hour. We've went an hour and 3 minutes, and I'm still fascinated. I want to keep going, but I think we got to get to some point to wrap it up. But I'll let you kind of bring us to the end, or bring us to now, if you will, and let's bring her to the end of this thing. And I'm sure I'm going to have you on again if you're willing, because I've been fascinated this entire time. My jaw's been on the ground. This is one of the more incredible stories I've ever heard. And I knew a little bit of your story, but it's incredible. Yeah, man, you've been at the pulse of almost everything the entire time. But
a little before, but it's caught me a lot of shit. Like, since I got out of prison, I've been busted 3 times. I've been raided 3 times. I've been prosecuted 3 times because I never cooperate. And it's been a pain in the ass. So in the middle of trying to do all this activist shit, were prosecuting me the whole way. But I'll take it as a compliment, because I think I'm, getting under their skin. And now I feel accomplished in a lot of ways because, people want to talk shit about corporate cannabis, but I believe in cannabinoids for all. I think that if people had cannabis, like I've had cannabis my whole life, they'd be much happier, balanced, well living people. And I truly believe in cannabis. So I would like to see the price drop. I was always an activist for, the people sitting in prison and for the little old ladies and the fucking people that are sick to have access. I was never an activist to protect the profits of small farmers. And I think that it's misplaced when people are actually blocking legalization because of profits over principles.
Right.
I really hate that. So I think we have to, focus on the roots of the problem, which was, minorities getting their ass handed to them for a pocket full of flowers, every time a cop could pull them over.
Right.
And I think it's whack. So legalization was to me really about our liberty, and the fact that here in California we are allowed to legally grow cannabis if you're 21 and over and you don't need a friggin' doctor's note as an excuse, to me is a huge victory for us all. And where the chips fall, they'll fall. When legalization on a federal level changes, I think all these small producers are going to be screwed anyway, because when Amazon Prime is delivering your kind bud from Iowa, grown in a greenhouse in the snow and winter, and it came out perfect, with Prime delivery day of the order, everything's going to change. And Jack Daniels is a single source. It all comes from Lynchburg, Tennessee, and Lynchburg, Tennessee is ironically still dry. You can legally not drink the Jack Daniels whiskey at the Jack Daniels distillery. And I think that's an example of cannabis prohibition that we might see as we develop our laws, because, it's still a democracy and some people are going to say, hey, fuck your weed. But they're not going to be the majority anymore. And I'm kind of hopeful for the changes. I believe that cannabis is going to become more popular than like a Michael Jackson or Britney Spears could ever be, because we all have an endocannabinoid system and it affects all of us so personally. And, with cancer rates as high as they are, unfortunately, statistically, people are either going to get cancer or know somebody who has cancer, and their life is going to be affected by cancer in some way. And they're going to have to look at cannabis and the way that it helps people on a serious note. And I joke that every fucking cop and prosecutor, judge, and jailer who's ever locked me up for cannabis, and there's been a lot of them, all have an endocannabinoid system, and someday will realize the virtues of cannabis on their own, but they'll someday figure it out and realize they were fucking wrong the whole time.
Yep, I agree with that. I think we're going to wrap her up, but I want to let you tell everybody how we can find you. Obviously, we have your IG on the bottom of the page. It's been there the entire time. Follow Todd P. McCormick on Instagram. You also have an Instagram for the seed company, which I believe was AG Seed Co. Just at Instagram. Or you go ahead and tell us. I don't fuck it up.
Yeah, I use my real name on all social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all Todd P. McCormick. And then AG Seed Co. is our Twitter, and our Instagram, and my website is agseedco.com. And now I'm just slinging seeds. Believe it or not, when I came back from Amsterdam in '97, that was my goal, because I was inspired by all the people that had started seed companies in Europe. And, slight life derailed. A short ending to this, which is funny, is when I met Mel Franca in November of '96, he told me that he had just made some skunk seeds that I should grow. And when I got back to LA, I picked some up before I got busted in spring of 1997. And then years and years go by, 23 years later, I go up to see Jim. His real name's Jim. And he would always come visit me, because I usually have pretty big places and guest rooms. So he would always come to me, and we go to pod events. So I hadn't been up to his house in a long time. And I said, shit, Jim, have I been here before? He said, yeah. And he said, 2 weeks before you get busted, to pick up these exact same seeds. And I was like, fuck, talk about life interrupted. And he was like, yeah, isn't that weird? But they were still sitting in the refrigerator for me to come back and pick up again.
Beautiful.
So it's crazy how
life restarted again,
circles.
dude. I can only imagine that, your story is by no means over. You know what I mean? It's just one of the craziest stories I've ever heard, like I said. And I can't imagine what's next, but I can verify.
I say
that,
never give up.
Yeah,
that's my whole mission. My whole life is just, after having cancer so many times as a kid, man, you either learn how to fight or die. And I didn't die, So unfortunately, fight or flight, I fight. But I recommend it to everybody. Nature favors the brave. Be bold. You're going to die anyway. You might as well live your life in a way that makes you proud.
Perfect last words, man. I think we'll end it right there, dude. Thanks again for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Sorry I was so long-winded. I was hoping we'd have a conversation. What it would turn me on to the conversation we were having. You were actually kind of unveiling the ridiculousness of the European seed makers, and down to I think you're estimating there's 6 big ones that white label all these seeds, and it's so fucking true.
Thank
And
you.
that's the reason I called my company Authentic Genetics, because I feel like all these people are slinging far from authentic genetics.
Thank you. It means a lot for me to have the respect of you for that video and everything else. I don't know, we took a whole heap load of shit for that one. But yeah, I stand by it. There's not
It's
shit on there
true.
I would change. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, man. And once again,
It's true. And
appreciate you coming on
should
here.
pick up you should pick up for your own library the original haze. Yeah, you should pick up the original skunk. I mean, between original haze, original skunk, and Northern Lights, those are the backbone of almost all modern cannabis.
Oh shit,
I
save me
mean,
one of
OG
all of them.
Kush is.
I'll grab them tomorrow. No
I,
shit. Literally
I
no
got
shit. I'll
yeah,
grab them all
I
tomorrow.
got
Put them in the vault just for safekeepings. Because yeah,
I
I'm
got
beyond
all of
sold,
it.
dude. I'm beyond
Trust
sold.
me. Yeah. Well, the reason is because the skunk is the only ones I know that are literally. I mean, these literally from the '80s. They've only been reproduced twice. The original haze came directly from Skunkman Sam's private seed collection. He gave me seeds that he said he keeps for himself and he doesn't sell to anybody. So yeah, and then the
Special.
Northern Lights came directly from friggin' Greg. Honestly, honestly I say honestly because I'm still like a little 13-year-old kid reading High Times, tripping out that I know these guys and they sent me and gave me genetics. So there's a part of me that's just as stupefied to hear the story as anyone listening to me. It
Sure.
sounds ridiculous. Yeah.
I'm sold, and I'm sure once the people hear this, they're gonna go scoop them fuckers up. Hope you got a lot of them, because they will be coming for them. I'm sure. Save me
Yeah, for
some.
sure. You'll fucking love them, dude. The OG Kush is definitely a derivative of NL2. I asked Greg if he'd ever smoked OG Kush. He said, "Yeah, it's NL2." And now that I've grown it, I just finished a whole greenhouse full of it. It's fucking amazing. It's totally that old school dank, heavy yielding Afghan thick leaf. It was
Yeah,
the biggest leaf I've ever seen
yeah.
on a plant in all my years of growing.
Fucking love the
And
sound of that.
it's just such old school, and it smells like skunk. I don't tell people this because everybody's gonna be. When I had OG, I had to listen to everybody tell me I didn't have OG, and then I had original haze. I had every asshole tell me you don't really have original haze, and then I released the skunk, and I had every asshole tell me
Yeah,
it doesn't smell like skunk, man. David Watson said it smells like sweetness, and I'm like, oh, I'll go fuck yourself. And now we're dealing with Northern Lights. And fortunately, I don't have as many naysayers as I did in the past, because the past 3 years, everybody's been growing my shit. And they're like,
sure. Yeah,
it's legit. Like,
the proof's
the
in the
genetics
pudding,
don't
man.
lie.
Yeah, proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, there's no two ways around it. And for people like you that are breeding, these are the puzzle pieces that you should get, because things
Building
like
blocks.
original haze is so dissimilar to all modern cannabis that you can really create the closest thing to F1s, because you really need dissimilar genetics to get consistency, uniformity in the first generation of a cross. And the problem that most people have that have access to genetics is they don't have anything that's far enough out of their collection that's dissimilar. Most of the shit is just crosses with Afghan in it. And unfortunately, that backbone of Afghan creates everybody's somewhat inbreeding. So when they cross together two plants that are under 10 weeks in flowering time, they're always going to separate the genes even more.
Yeah, I follow
You know
you
what I mean?
completely. That's why we
Yeah.
talk about everyone's painting with shades of gray at the moment a little bit.
Let's
And
save that
Simon,
conversation for a second episode.
yeah, so we
yeah,
gotta
we
sign
will,
her
but we
off.
could talk about Simon sometime, because Simon's Serious Seeds only sells F1s. He keeps all his parent plants.
Totally.
He combines the same parent plants, and he always puts out F1s. So there are people like Simon that are super legit and know exactly what they're doing, but he's one in 1,000, if not even one in less than that,
Right
in
on,
my
man.
opinion. Yeah.
Once again, I want to thank you for coming on here, and we're gonna wrap her up. But I'm honored to have you come on the program, dude. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, guys. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Cheers.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Okay, guys. Peace.
So yeah, we were running a little late, so we had to end that one a little short. But I think we're definitely going to need to do part 2. What a hell of a story, crazy life. But yeah, like I say, I told you that one was going to be a banger. I told you. So we ran long. I don't know how we're going to get this one on IG, but it might be in parts. But yeah, I appreciate Todd for coming on, and hell yeah, man. Same bat time next week, same bat channel. And we out of here. Peace, everybody.
Little baby gay fish, come sit on my shoulder today. Little gay parrot fish, sit on my shoulder today and make me a fried shrimpy dish with some soy sauce, baby. As the beat drops, super fried, super fried egg roll, triple fried rice, triple fried rice, baby. 2 for 1 egg roll, super triple fried rice, triple fried rice, baby. Don't forget the soy sauce, chan chan chan. There's my gay fish song, dudes. What?